guilty of murder in the first degree and armed criminal action.
Does the defense wish to make opening at this time?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Heston.
May it please the court?
Proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. There is nothing more sad and more tragic than an innocent person being convicted of something they did not do. Lynlee Renick did not kill Ben Renick. She did not know that Ben Renick was going to be killed in that early summer day of June 8th. And believe me, she did not want Ben Renick to be killed that day. Ben Renick's death on June 8th was literally the furthest thing from Lynlee Renick's mind. Before Lynlee Renick was Lynlee Renick, she was Lynlee Gallatin. And I think it's important for this case for you to understand the types of people that Lynlee and Ben were, because Lynlee's going to make some decisions down the road, and that I think that you understanding the kind of person she was back then will help you understand why she made those decisions. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody reacts the same way to situations. Lynlee Gallatin was born in 1988. She grew up in a very small rural Missouri town called Wellsville, which is about, if you were to continue about an hour down the road east on Highway 70 and then went north 20 miles, you would come to a grassy town called Wellsville. That's where she grew up. Her father, Lyndall, who was an electrician, and her mother, Brenda, who was a nurse, raised her and her sister, April, in a small country house. She graduated high school from Wellsville Middle School, high school in 2006, and didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. But one of the things about Lynlee Renick that is a constant in her life is that Lynlee Renick is the consummate extrovert. She is the consummate outgoing person. She's one of those people back then that loved and needed to be surrounded by people. Lynlee Renick was a supportive person. She wanted a big family, and she liked supporting people, and she liked people supporting her, almost to a fault. So when it became time for her to kind of decide what to do with her life, her sister April brought home some pamphlets from a local business college in Columbia about massage therapy, and it clicked with Lynlee Renick. That appealed to all of the things that she liked in life. It appealed to her helping people. Her mother was a nurse, and it appealed to her social abilities, that she liked being around people. Now, a massage therapist is not a hobby. It's hard work. She had to go to school for a year for this, and she had to sit for boards, and she had to get a license. While this is going on, Lynlee Renick had her first child. Lynlee Renick met a man named Josh Hake in 2008. And while Lynlee Renick was home with morning sickness in the summer, Josh Hake went down to the Lake of the Ozarks, drank, and hit another car, and got 10 years in prison. So Lynlee Renick, before she was 20, was a single mother and had to deliver her first child, Matthew, they called him Maddie, on her own. And her mother, who was always her champion in a crisis, helped deliver Maddie. Another thing you have to understand about Lynlee Renick, besides the fact she's very small, she's barely 100 pounds, and I think she's just over 5 feet tall. There is not a violent bone in Lynlee Renick's body. You are not going to hear one witness in this entire trial take the stand and point to a single violent thing prior to this false allegation that Lynlee Renick has ever done in her life. She's into Harry Potter books, she's into soap, she's into massage and that sort of thing. She is the least dangerous person, that she is the furthest away from violence that a person can get. She has zero experience or zero proficiency with firearms. She's not interested in guns. She has never been, she may have held a gun once or twice in her life. She has zero ability with a gun. Finally, Lynlee Renick, the most important, you're going to hear a testimony about how Lynlee loved the spa and the spa was closing, so she didn't know what to do. Lynlee Renick's kids are the most important things in her life. Even when an officer was interrogating her on October the 5th of 2017, the officer even says, next to your kids, Lynlee, besides your kids, that spa was the most important thing to you. Lynlee Renick adores her kids. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about Benjamin Renick. This is Benjamin Renick. This was Lynlee's husband for about 4 years. Lynlee Renick was enjoying a season of comfort in 2009. She had just gotten out of a toxic, abusive relationship with this man, Michael Humphrey. She dated Michael Humphrey around 2008 or so, and Michael Humphrey back then was just sort of a screw-up going nowhere in life. Not overtly violent, but just a guy who was kind of a lazy, not really doing anything with his life, not really going anywhere. So Lynlee got out of that relationship, and she was enjoying a season of comfort, like I said, when she met Ben. Ben was, and it almost seems fated that these two exceptional people would find each other in such an ordinary place like Montgomery County, Missouri. To Lynlee, Ben was an amazing, ambitious, accomplished genius. Ben was one of those people that was good at everything he tried. When he was a teenager, he was able to start a reptile company that was world-renowned. He was one of the best reptile breeders in the world. And doing what he did is not a hobby, it's not a gimmick. It takes tremendous ability to replicate the habitats of these things in such a way that you can breed them and make money from them. Some of these reptiles also can sell for upwards of $50,000. And some of these reptiles weigh more, some of these snakes weigh more than 100 pounds. Lynlee was impressed by that. She was also impressed by, Ben was interesting. And Ben had other hobbies. Ben liked to play the drums, and Ben was into monster horror movies, and he had props and souvenirs and things like that. In fact, one of the tattoos on his arm is Godzilla and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. Ben was just an interesting guy. He was creative, he was artistic, and Lynlee really gravitated toward that. She had never met anybody like that before. On the other hand, Ben had never met anybody as outgoing as Lynlee. Lynlee was so supportive of him, and she cheered him on, and she loved and was impressed by him, and Ben just kind of soaked this up. Ben was raised in a very sort of isolated way. And unlike Lynlee, who got her fulfillment from relationships with people, Lynlee got her happiness from relationships with people, Ben got his happiness and his fulfillment from personal success, from achieving things. And why that is important is these two individuals would become immediately infatuated with each other, and they would be inseparable. And they would almost immediately move in together. Lynlee would move into Ben's farmhouse in Montgomery County, and they would begin, Lynlee would quit her job at River Song Spa, where she was a massage therapist, and begin helping Ben full-time with his reptile business. And they had this very strong relationship. However, on the horizon were red flags, because they were such different people, and what made them happy was so different that when they came together and they tried to make this work as a relationship, both of them could never really chart one single path in life. Ben wanted to raise snakes, and Lynlee wanted to be around people. Ben wanted to stay secluded, Lynlee wanted to socialize, and this began tension. Ben was kind-hearted and he was friendly, but he could react very defensively and almost hostilely if somebody came between him and success. So eventually, Ben and Lynlee get married. In 2014, they have a daughter named Amelia. And after they get married, Ben would lose his father. His father, Frank, would commit suicide. And why that's important is I want to talk a little bit about Ben's finances, because I think Ms. King brought up an insurance policy, so I want to talk to you a little bit about Ben's finances. Ben had no will, and so what would happen to his money if he died, nobody knew. And his father had left him money in a trust. So what a trust is it's like an account where assets are put, and then somebody watches over that account called the trustee, and then that trustee distributes these assets according to a document called the trust. The trust document said Ben would get these assets. However, if he had a child or a descendant and Ben died, all of the trust assets would go to the descendant. So Lynlee, as the spouse, because they had Amelia, was not going to get any of Ben's property, and she was not going to get any of the trust money. Now, the insurance was taken out, but it's not clear whether or not the insurance policy was put into the trust. Once the insurance policy goes into the trust, now that insurance policy is going to Amelia. It's not going to Lynlee Renick. And the police are even confused about this, because the police will write in one of their police reports that this certain person, Chuck Thal, was the trustee of the life insurance policy, which would have to mean that this life insurance policy was in the trust. And you're also going to hear testimony that Lynlee Renick never tried to find out if she was getting this this life insurance money. Afterwards, after Ben died, she didn't get any money. The only way she was able to sustain a living was by new maneuverings and things like that she never could have known about before Ben died. So Lynlee and Ben, friction develops pretty soon in the relationship. Lynlee wants to be around people. She wants affection. Ben wants to be successful. They're very good together in temporary situations, but over the course of time, the relationship begins to deteriorate, and accompanied by all of the fights and bickering and screaming and arguing behind closed doors that happens when two people are just not compatible with each other. Lynlee is given the opportunity to get a loan for a spa, and she sees this as kind of an escape, a way to kind of forge her own life. She likes being with Ben, she likes working at the reptile shows and the convention, but she has this opportunity through Chuck Thal to get a loan and open up her own spa. Lynlee is not a business person, but nevertheless, she opens up this spa called the Sentia Spa in Columbia, Missouri, and it is in a very busy part of Columbia. In fact, there are condos surrounding this place. There's cars parked everywhere. It's a very busy place. It's a small place, and it's packed with employees, up to 15 employees sometimes. So she opens up this spa, and she hires a person. She hires this woman, Ashley Shaw, to help her run the spa. Ashley Shaw is a business person. She used to work at Riversong with Lynlee, that's how they know each other, and she went out to California for 5 months to do business stuff out there, and she came back. Ashley Shaw is more of an assertive, more of a go-getter. Lynlee Renick is sociable, easily led, and more of a passive person. Lynlee Renick really likes to be happy, surrounded by lots of people. She's not really an order giver and that kind of thing. Ashley Shaw is quickly promoted to spa manager. In that role, she sits at the front desk, she goes to the bank all the time, and she watches things. Lynlee Renick begins to confide in Ashley Shaw problems between her and Ben. And the problems between her and Ben become pretty severe. Ben is not a violent person by nature, but he is extremely cold to her, and he begins touching her and begins doing things against her will while she's asleep. And it comes from the fact that Ben wants things from her that Lynlee Renick does not want to give him. And so these things build and build and build until Lynlee starts coming to a sensuous spot with bruises on her arms. And she discusses these problems with Ashley Shaw. And Lynlee Renick's life at this point is falling apart. Her business is going under, her marriage is going under, she's trying to raise 2 children, she doesn't really know what to do, she's overwhelmed. And so she begins discussing these problems with Ashley Shaw. And Ashley Shaw gives Lynlee advice, and almost all of it's bad. Lynlee Renick begins having affairs. These are not healthy relationships. She's not doing this because she wants to, or because, well, I guess she wants to, but she's not doing this because she's in love with these men. She's doing this as a distraction, and she needs the affection that Ben's not giving her. So this gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, until eventually Lynlee Renick, on the advice of Ashley Shaw, or with the help of Ashley Shaw, these two would smoke outside the patio on this spa, decides to go to ask Ben for a separation. And they are talking, Ashley Shaw is pulling the strings and suggesting that Lynlee take somebody with her to do this. And so they kind of go through a list of people who can go with Ashley Shaw to confront Ben and ask for a separation. There's not really anybody that they can come up with. Ashley Shaw's boyfriend, Ben, does not like Ben, and Ashley's boyfriend does not want Ashley going to confront Ben at the reptile house. So they're brainstorming, and they make the very, very unfortunate decision to ask Michael Humphrey to go with Lynlee Renick to confront Ben about a divorce. And Ashley Shaw looks up Michael Humphrey on CaseNet. CaseNet's like a Google search for people who have court cases. You can find out their address and things like that. Ashley Shaw looks up Michael Humphrey on CaseNet. Ashley Shaw drives Lynlee Renick down to Michael Humphrey, and Ashley Shaw is saying to herself and telling Lynlee that if you don't have somebody to go with you, you'll never go through it, because Lynlee is just like a pendulum. She's going, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And she's just not in her right mind at this point. She doesn't know what Ben's going to do. She doesn't know if she's going to be homeless. She doesn't know how she's going to take care of her kids without Ben's income. She's overwhelmed and she's terrified, and she's just kind of going along with what Ashley Shaw is saying. What Lynlee Renick does not know is that in the 7 years since she broke up with Michael Humphrey has graduated into a violent, meth-addicted, career criminal. And when they go down and talk to him, he looks like the same old Michael Humphrey, but he's not the same Michael Humphrey. This man is a meth user, he is a meth dealer, he is a felon, and he is violent. He tells one of the detectives that he tortures cats for fun. And all of this is not known to Lynlee Renick. Michael comes off, I guess it's fine. He says, sure, I'll stand there while you confront your husband, sure. And then Lynlee says, Lynlee, being bubbly and emanating her light, she says, why don't you come up and have a couple of massages on the house? And so Michael does that. And everybody sees him. He's in this very, very busy, he's coming back and forth in this very busy place, and everybody sees him. In fact, 4 women from this place go out and they jump his car. So he's being seen, and they're discussing how they're gonna confront Ben and what's gonna happen. And they're kind of chatting, and they're doing all this stuff. Lynlee is being deceptive to Ben at this point. Okay, Ben, she loves Ben. So you're going to hear a lot of affectionate texts to Ben, and those are going to be portrayed as her being manipulative. That's not true. She loved Ben. She was infatuated with him. She wanted nothing more than this relationship to work. She even tells Ben, I want to go to therapy. However, what she in the back of her mind knows is we're not compatible. I don't want to live in the country on a reptile house. I want my own life. And she's back and she's forth, and she's back and she's forth, and while this is going on, her life is coming apart. So that's why there's all this conflict. She's not being deceptive. However, she is being deceptive about her going to separate with Ben. She's not planning a murder. She's planning a divorce. And so her and Michael Humphrey go out to this facility. Now, Michael Humphrey, behind the scenes, has gotten a new cell phone the day before this happens, and he's talking with another person who's also convicted, who's also being looked at for another homicide, and he's making comments to this other person, things like, what do you do about somebody who's abusing their wife? How do you make it stop? So Michael Humphrey, unbeknownst to Lynlee Renick, is making his own plans. So it's June 8th, it's an early summer day, it's clear, sunny, cloudless day. And these two set out in Michael Humphrey's old, I think it's a 1990 Pro, black beater car. And they go from Columbia, Missouri to Montgomery County. And they pull off Highway 70 and they go down an access road and they stop in front of a ranch-style house. It looks like a house, a one-story house structure, aluminum siding. And out of the front door emerges Benjamin Renick. And he's carrying a bag of trash. And Michael and Lynlee get out of the car, and Lynlee is fidgeting, she's nervous, she's scared, and she blurts something out like, "This is Michael Humphrey, he's my friend, and he likes snakes, and would you talk to him?" And then she goes, "Oh, by the way, I'll take the trash," because Lynlee is just kind of buying time. Her heart is pounding, her pulse is racing, and she is just finding the words. She knows it's coming, and she's scared. And so she takes the trash. And while she takes the trash and walks to the dumpster, Michael Humphrey and Benjamin Renick go into the house. And we don't know what happens with these two going into the house. They go into the house. They go into this reptile house where there's Tupperware containers, floor to ceiling, of reptiles, snakes inside of them. And Lynlee Renick throws the trash away. She comes in. And it's not clear what passes between Michael and Ben, but it's probably not good. Because Ben knows Lynlee is not being faithful, and Michael knows Ben is abusing her. So what's very plausible is Ben, being Ben, says something like, "Oh, you must be one of Lynlee's boyfriends." Michael doesn't like that. "Oh, you must be the person who's abusing Lynlee." Something happens. A gun comes out. Lynlee walks in, and she's in the corner, wringing her hands, staring at her shoes, sweating, trying to figure out what's going on, and a shot rings out. Lynlee runs outside, more shots ring out, and she screams so loudly that a neighbor a half mile away, named Mike Scarlett, hears her scream. Michael Humphrey scoops up a couple of the shells. Now there's 7 or 8 of these bullets are fired, and only 3 are picked up. So obviously he's in a hurry. This was not a planned thing. He only picks up a couple of these shells, hustles her into her car, and takes her back to Columbia. And Lynlee Renick's mind at this point, I'm going to propose to you, is blown. She is catatonic, she is paralyzed, and she is just not in control of herself. She goes back to the spot and is not really remembering what exactly happened from that point on, but Ashley tells her, "You were never there. If they know you were there, they are going to arrest you. You're the wife. They always suspect the wife, and you have to hide this, cover this up, whatever." Lynlee this is not registering with her. She doesn't even know what happened. And she is just shaking and wants to go back home. So she leaves and goes back home in her own car. And is texting people on the way, these damning texts you're going to see, you're going to read. She's texting Michael Humphrey. She goes, "What happened? And are you getting home okay?" And in her mind, she is trying to convince herself Ben is okay. And she's sending out kind of these probing text messages, hoping that one of these people will get back to her and say Ben is okay, and he just called or something like that. However, when she gets to Kingdom City, about halfway home, she gets a call from a school that says Ben had not picked up the kids and was supposed to pick up the kids. And she begins to really, really panic. Something else I want to say is that you're going to hear testimony that they concocted this scheme to get Ben to pick up the kids on his own. Ben called the spa. then Ashley Shaw responded, because Lynlee always left her phone at the front desk, because Lynlee did massages in spandex leggings. Lynlee every single day left her phone at that front desk. That was nothing planned. It was her habit. And then Ashley Shaw, if Ben was being ornery, Lynlee would say, just tell him I'm busy, I'll call him back. And so Ashley would always text Ben and say, hey, she's busy, pretending to be late. It's just what they did. So Lynlee gets back, finds Ben, and loses her mind. Ben is in a pile of blood. He is on top of the blood pile, on top of the blood, so that whoever shot him very fast before he could run or move or fight or do anything like that. They didn't miss, so they were very accurate. And then after they incapacitated him, they approached Ben and fired 2 shots directly down. And we know that because on the floor are 2 divots, indentions, where the bullets passed through Ben's body and struck the floor and caused these divots. Then, after 2 of these whoever shot him did that twice, they then had the presence of mind to crouch down and put the barrel of the gun up to his temple, an inch or so away, and fire the last shot that basically did what that would do. And what's interesting is you're going to hear testimony that when a gun is fired, there is a discharge of soot about that long that comes from the barrel. And that would mean that if somebody is standing over a body and they shoot, and there's no soot on the body, the gun would have to be 20 to 18 inches above the body. And there's no gunpowder residue on Ben's body except for that shot to the head, which means that whoever was standing over Ben to deliver those 2 shots was holding the gun at least 18 to 20 inches away from the top of Ben's body. Lynlee Renick is 5'3". Michael Humphrey is 6'4". So she finds Ben, and it's chaos. And eventually they find that he's been murdered, and they call in a special highway patrol investigative team. And the person who gets the case is named Trooper Faust. Trooper Faust conducts an investigation from 6/8 of 2017 to about the end of 2017. And he is, by all accounts, a thorough, meticulous homicide investigator. And he finds pretty quickly, and this is lots of information here, but he finds out pretty quickly Lynlee and Michael Humphrey were going to the facility to do something disagreeable. It's very, very apparent, very, very soon, that Lynlee's covering this up. She's lying to him. She's saying, I had nothing to do with this, and it's pretty clear she did. They don't buy it at all. And they confront, and once they have exhausted all the leads, and they've talked to all the people, and they've looked at all this stuff, they've got nothing else to do, or they got nothing else to look at, so they have a sit down with Lynlee. They square their chairs up to her, and they say, we know you are involved. Okay, all of this covering up, your lies are stupid, this is just, come on, just tell us what happened. And she's like, no, I didn't do it, I don't know what happened, I don't know. And then they're like, listen, they go back and forth. Finally, she squeaks out, and Devin Faust says, we know you're involved, and she says, I wanted a divorce. Now that's an admission, okay, because she's shifting her story. But Devin Faust doesn't pick up on it. Devin Faust also forgets about the Mike Scarlett hearing a person scream and never confronts her about that. But she says, I wanted a divorce. And they don't arrest her because they don't have enough information. And they actually run scenario after scenario after scenario by her. Was it you alone? Was it Michael alone? Was it you and Michael together? They just don't know what happened. They know they're involved, but they don't know what happened. So the case goes cold. And Devin Faust has a family tragedy, and he is whisked away from the DDCC, this special unit. And a new investigator who has never tried or never investigated a homicide case in his life, named Trooper Schaefer, automatically takes over the case. Don't know why, he automatically takes it over. And while that's happening, years pass. Lynlee Renick begins a relationship with a man named Brandon Blackwell. And Brandon Blackwell is very possessive of Lynlee Renick. And Brandon Blackwell goes to a meeting with Lynlee Renick and Ashley Shaw. Ashley Shaw is covering up the homicide too. Ashley Shaw had just been talked to, and the officers asked Ashley Shaw, what do you know about a poison? What do you know about a poisoning that happened about 2 weeks before the murder? Ashley Shaw was like, oh, we had a protein shake. These vendors come in and they give us protein powders just for marketing stuff, and we had one and we all got sick. I mixed mine with peanut butter and it wasn't a big deal. And in fact, Ben is joking about being sick. He actually, in his text messages, he says, hey, fun story, Lynlee's trying to poison me, ha ha ha. It's very, very clear he is not very sick from the shake. However, Ashley Shaw learns that the police are suspicious that Lynlee poisoned Ben. So they have this meeting, and all of these people, Michael, Lynlee, Ashley, they're all talking, they're all sharing information. So they all know things about the case. They all have this same inside information that the police have. And Ashley Shaw tells Brandon Blackwell, yeah, they suspect that we poisoned Ben. And so Brandon Blackwell takes that little piece of information, he puts it in his back pocket for a rainy day. And Lynlee and Brandon relationship deteriorates to a point where Lynlee Renick takes out an order of protection against Brandon Blackwell, who he proceeds to violate.
Judge, going to object based on the objection we made earlier.
I'm not getting into statements, Your Honor.
Objection be overruled.
Brandon Blackwell proceeds to violate the order of protection 12 times. He is arrested and released from jail 5 times. He loses a bond hearing on the 13th, and while he is in jail, Lynlee's attorney, family law attorney, serves him with a child custody petition. The day after Brandon Blackwell loses his bond hearing, troopers come and they talk to him in his jail cell at the Boone County Jail. Then they leave, and they don't do anything except they go pick up Ashley Shaw. And they tap on our window, and they say, come with us. And she goes, sure, I'll come with you guys, no problem. So she's in the car, and she's carefree. She's going on about her job and her kids, and she's not nervous at all. She's not nervous because she didn't do anything wrong except cover up a murder, which is a misdemeanor. And on the way, they get there, and Trooper Schaefer says, we know, first of all, he says, what do you know, did Lynlee do this? She goes, no, I don't know. She goes, I don't know if Lynlee did this or not. I just don't know. And he says, well, we have information that you were involved. And if you don't tell the truth, change your story, you are going to be arrested for first-degree murder. And just to put things to her in a way that she cannot be confused about, Trooper Schaefer says this, which basically is this. So, Ashley Shaw is told that if she does not change her statement, she is going to be put through the ordeal of being accused of the most serious crime that is in our system. And I want to point out that what Trooper Schaefer does are 3 things. He tells her what to say or indicates that she should say something incriminating against Lynlee Renick. He tells her that she will be punished if she does not say that. And he says, and he doesn't even know if what he wants her to say is true. And I want you to keep in mind that when you tell somebody they are going to be accused of a crime, that would work on anybody. So it's not like she's Ashley Shaw is caving into the evidence against her or the weight of the evidence against her, or hey Ashley, we have you on video. If you went to Tallahassee, Florida and picked somebody up and drove them to a police station and say this, or we're going to just accuse you of a crime, well, they would say that just to avoid having to hire an attorney, and having to sit in jail, and having to deal with the anxiety of possibly being falsely accused. And they know what they're doing, and that's what they were doing. So everything Ms. King just told you, oh, she did this, and she did that, and all this, that's what Ashley Shaw said to the police after Schaefer said, if you don't change your story, you're going to be accused of murder. And that's where they get their story, and that is their entire case. Now, we are aware that Schaefer said that because he got it on tape. Rachel Hunt, the other employee who found out about this murder and went along with it just like Ashley Shaw did, what the police said to her before she changed her statement, we never know because they were smart enough to not record what they told her before she changed her statement. Michael Humphrey, I'm almost done. Michael Humphrey is picked up. Michael Humphrey remembers the police coming to him and telling him, we want to hammer Lynlee, because at some point they're just looking for somebody to say the two magic words, Lynlee Renick. So they come to Michael Humphrey and they say, we know Lynlee Renick did this and we want you to help us. In fact, they go to Michael Humphrey's trailer solely because they just learned his door got kicked in and he was raided by the SWAT team for drugs. And they actually try to bribe him and they say, if you help us with this Lynlee Renick case, if you help us hammer her, those are their exact words, those drug charges are gone. We've already talked to the Callaway County prosecutor and they will dismiss your drug charges. Michael Humphrey says to himself, I'm in pretty good shape here. They think Lynlee did it, but I don't want to tell them I'm an accomplice because number one, I would have to invent a story because I'm not an accomplice. And so if I try to invent a story I'm an accomplice, I may screw it up and just end up incriminating myself. They don't think I did it. They think Lynlee did it. I'll save that for a rainy day, and I'll deny doing it. So he says I didn't do anything wrong. So they say finally leave. However, when he finally gets picked up, he says, oh yeah, Lynlee did it too. Because he remembers the officer saying to him, we think she did this. So they see that as further corroboration that this woman did this. And so they're going to parade all these warm bodies in front of you to say that this woman did this, when really all of these people are just using facts that they learned through the course of being around this investigation, and they're using those facts which would apply equally to anybody, and they're using those facts to say she did it in order to get a benefit for themselves. It's kind of like if 3 kids are roughhousing.
Judge, I'm going to object. This is opening statement, not closing arguments.
I'll move on.
Don't argue your case here.
If 3 kids are roughhousing in a living room and they knock over a lamp, all of them know what happened up until the point where the lamp was knocked over. That information would equally apply to any one of those 3 people. That's what's going to be going on here in this case. All of these people know the facts just by being around the investigation. They don't know these facts because what they're saying is actually true. They're just using those facts to substantiate, to make themselves be believed. So basically, what the state is going to say is, here are some witnesses, they say she did it, and they know things about the case, that's all they're going to be able to say. And at the end of our case, we are going to be able to give you 5 reasons why it is impossible for this woman to have killed Ben Renick. Thank you.
Okay, evidence for the state.
The state calls Catherine Fox, Your Honor.
Come on down, ma'am. raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat right up here. Ask your question, Councilman.
Can you state your name, please?
Catherine Fox?
And Ms. Fox, do you know Lynlee Renick?
Yes.
And did you know Ben Renick?
Yes.
How did you know them?
I babysat their children.
About how long did you babysit for them?
Approximately 5 years.
And did you babysit on a regular basis for them?
Yes.
About how often would you say?
Typically about once a week.
I'm sorry, say that again?
About once a week.
Do you have any idea what they were out doing when you were babysitting?
Sometimes they would watch a movie. Sometimes they would go out to eat, shopping, different things.
Just kind of like a date night,
Yeah.
the two of them. And were you asked to babysit on June 8th of 2017?
Yes.
Do you have any idea where they were going that night?
I do not.
What time were you supposed to be there on the 8th?
Around 6.
Around 6 o'clock
Yes.
initially?
Yes, I believe so.
At some point, did you receive some messages from Lynlee Renick?
Yes.
And were those text messages?
They were text messages and then later a phone call.
May I approach you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna show
You know what, from now on, that's a good, you all don't have to ask me to approach, just go up there and
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to show you what have been marked States Exhibits 100 through 104. Can you just flip through those and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes.
And are those photographs of your telephone?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit States Exhibits 100 through 104.
any objection? Who's doing it? You doing this, Mr. Hessman? Okay, 100 through 104 for the state be admitted.
Judge, before is that off? Because I have a photograph up here that's not actually admitted yet. Before I get to that,
The screen.
What do you want to do?
I need to switch in the PowerPoint to the appropriate exhibit. And before I do so,
Just for her to see it?
yes,
And it's not 100 or through 104?
correct.
Okay, let me see if
I need to move there. Is what I need to do.
okay, just a minute.
I think he has to turn it off so I can check.
Okay, so you all ought to be able to see it, you ought to be able to see it, and she can see it, and I can see it. Okay?
Okay, perfect.
Right, there's nothing, I can't see that TV, there's nothing on that, right? Okay, all right.
We're good, Judge. If you want to turn it on.
Well, you didn't, what is this?
That's States Exhibit 100.
100? Okay, so that's admitted. Is it on there now? Okay.
Ms. Fox, can you see that on the screen in
Yes.
front of you? And that's States Exhibit 100. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
It's a screenshot from my phone that has Lynlee Renick's contact information.
And then 101. What is that?
It's the same thing, it just has her mobile number on that one.
102. Can you tell us what that is?
But yeah, that is a screenshot of